This map of the Middle East shows the flow of the world's energy funneling right into the Strait of Hormuz. This single 21-mile bottleneck handles a fifth of all globally traded oil and natural gas. But that flow has violently stopped. An Iranian strike recently hit a Cyprus-flagged container ship, destroying its engine room and setting the vessel ablaze. The human cost was immediate. The ship's entirely Indian crew was forced to abandon the vessel. Rescue operations recovered 10 sailors, but one remains missing at sea. In the hours following the attack, Iran formally closed the waterway, declaring the strait off-limits to unauthorized vessels until further notice. The military blockade turns the physical choke point into the center of a widening conflict. The 21-mile gap is now the geographic manifestation of a war the global community can no longer ignore. To understand how this waterway became a war zone, we have to trace the political collapse back to February 28th, with the assassination of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. His son, Mujtaba Khamenei, took power immediately. In his first public statement following the succession, he vowed that retaliation for his father's death was the will of the nation and would certainly be carried out. Washington met that threat with aggressive diplomatic pressure. President Donald Trump declared the temporary ceasefire over and revoked the waivers that allowed Iran to export its crude oil. The Pentagon then drew a hard line on civilian shipping. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated bluntly that Iran made a poor choice and now they would pay. With treaties torn up and diplomacy abandoned, both nations are out of political options. The narrow transit route of Hormuz is the only tool left for both sides to inflict massive economic damage. This map tracks the U.S. military's kinetic response to the ship attack. In a single wave, U.S. forces hit 140 separate Iranian military targets. These strikes targeted infrastructure across the southern provinces. They hit missile launch sites, radar networks, and coastal surveillance hubs. But Iran cannot match conventional U.S. firepower head-on. Instead, they rely on an asymmetric strategy, pointing their retaliation toward regional vulnerabilities. Specifically, they aimed at Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE, nations hosting U.S. military bases. The fallout was immediate. Missile alerts blared across the Gulf, air defense systems scrambled to intercept, and civilians were injured by falling shrapnel. Targeting allied nations pulls traditionally neutral neighbors into the conflict, turning civilian airspace in wealthy Gulf hubs into active combat zones. Pristine economic hubs, like the skyline of Doha you see here, are now adapting to a harsh physical reality. These cities built for global commerce are living under the constant threat of missile alerts and falling debris. To maintain any semblance of order, naval fleets are forced into a state of high alert, navigating these waters in tight formations to secure whatever trade routes they can. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts are stalling. Nations like Oman and Pakistan are trying to mediate a truce, but their talks are failing to gain traction. Intelligence suggests that hard-line factions within Iran are actively working to sabotage the ceasefire to ensure the conflict continues. Tehran's negotiators have adopted a rigid stance, publicly declaring that the era of one-sided agreements is permanently over. As long as those 21 miles of water remain a contested, burning military zone, the flow of global energy stays trapped. The international economy is held hostage at its narrowest point, pushing the entire world toward a deeply damaging regional war.